My clip is still there.
She didn't think I could turn the crank?
Huh?
You didn't think I could turn the
I
crank?
did think you
yet?
could turn the crank. I don't want you to hurt yourself or.
All right, well, that should be
Are we
plenty
all
good.
go?
Quinn, you good? All right, well, wonderful. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Senate Republican Leader Mark Johnson, and we're here today for one reason, and that's just to announce updates and additions to the ethics complaints against Senator Mitchell. Since April of 24, her arrest, since their 2024 arrest, Senate Republicans have been very clear. Her actions have damaged the integrity of the Senate and distracted us from the important work that we need to be doing here. Unfortunately, Senate Democrats have shielded Senator Mitchell and the serious consequences to advance their agenda. And they're also avoiding the bipartisanship and even allow the Senate to become complicit in the legal strategy that delays both justice for the victim and holds the senator accountable for her actions. Today, we are adding a new ethics charge against Senator Mitchell in casting the deciding vote on a motion concerning her own membership in the Senate. Many have rightly asked, how can a member cast a vote that determines their long-term ability to be in the Senate? We believe this is a clear violation of the conflict of interest rules that the Senate holds to. Additionally, with the announcement of a second felony charge against Senator Nicole Mitchell, we have updated our existing ethics complaint, and we are going to be running that. It's filing that today, too. Before we discuss anything further, I'd like to send this over to Senator Steve Drazkowski, and he'll talk about the new conflict of interest complaint. Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Leader Johnson. On January 27th, the Minnesota Senate had the opportunity to lift the cloud over the body that had existed ever since police officers found Senator Mitchell hidden in a basement bathroom of her stepmother's home. Minnesota statute and Senate rules both outline the process for handling conflicts of interest and expect members to disclose any issue for which they have a financial conflict. Members are expected to abstain from votes for which they have a financial interest. Senator Mitchell did not disclose her conflict and did not abstain from a procedural vote that stood in the way of a vote on her expulsion. Senator Mitchell had 10 months to contemplate her conflict on this vote. 10 months. She was reminded of it on the floor prior to voting. She voted anyway. Senator Mitchell deliberately and defiantly violated the rules of ethical conduct of the Minnesota Senate. Her vote was a deciding vote that prevented the expulsion vote from occurring. Our contention is simple. Senator Mitchell has a conflict of interest in any vote related to her political future. Any vote to expel her from the Senate would result in the loss of her employment as a senator and would immediately end access to the salary and benefits afforded to a legislator. The benefits to remaining a senator are considerable. Senator Mitchell is an employee of the state with a salary, health insurance, and assigned staff to help her with her work. And even more so, she has been able to use her position as a senator to delay her trial for months. She had everything to gain from casting her decisive vote on January 27th and everything to lose. If she were expelled, she'd lose a job, health benefits, staff, and her trial would be able to proceed because she would lose the privileges and statute that exclusively are granted to legislators. This complaint stands separate from her criminal case and independent of other ethics complaints before us today. It doesn't need to wait for her criminal trial to conclude to be decided. The Subcommittee on Ethical Conduct should immediately act to prevent Senator Mitchell from participating in any vote associated with her political future and should take any and all disciplinary action warranted by this violation of the public trust. I'll now turn it over to Senator Lucero to talk about the amended complaint that he and other senators are filing today.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Today we are filing an updated complaint against Senator Mitchell with the Senate Subcommittee on Ethical Conduct. This update enhances the original complaint filed against Senator Mitchell April of last year. The updated complaint contains information including the filing of an additional felony charge against Senator Mitchell. In addition to being charged with first-degree burglary, Senator Mitchell has also been charged with possession of burglary or theft tools. As it stands today, the facts are stunning. We have a sitting member of the Minnesota Senate facing not one, but 2 charges associated with breaking into her stepmother's home. The additional information in the new charging documents offer more detail on the events of April 22nd, 2024. Senator Mitchell was found in the middle of the night, hidden in a basement bathroom, dressed all in black, with her shoes removed and shoes hidden near or under a couch. A crowbar was found near a window where Senator Mitchell apparently broke into the home of her stepmother. Senator Mitchell admitted to law enforcement officers, quote, "There were just a couple of things," unquote, of her dad's she, quote, "wanted to come get," unquote. Senator Mitchell stated, quote, "I know I did something bad," unquote, and, quote, "Clearly I'm not good at this," unquote, and noted, quote, "I'm just hoping this mistake wouldn't completely F up my life," unquote. We are asking the Ethics Subcommittee to consider an additional violation of Senate rules. Senator Mitchell, last spring, was able to persuade the Ethics Subcommittee to delay a decision while her criminal trial proceeded. Throughout last summer and fall, Senator Mitchell's defense team exchanged filings and motions with prosecutors. The defense team requested a delay due to a scheduling conflict. The defense team stipulated evidence and exchanged witness and evidence lists. The filing dragged on until the court case was docketed for January of 2025. It wasn't until January 10th of 2025, just days before the 2025 legislative session would begin, when Senator Mitchell's legal team chose to assert Minnesota Statute 3.16, which allows legislators to delay trials until after session. A delay was subsequently granted, and Senator Mitchell's trial is now scheduled for June of this year. As a result, Senator Mitchell chose to abuse the process to first delay the Ethics Subcommittee from considering information, then turning right around and use her Senate position to delay her criminal trial. These delays failed to remove the cloud from the Minnesota Senate and failed to deliver justice for the real victim in all of this, Carol Mitchell. We have the information needed to conclude the Senate standards of ethical conduct have been violated. We know breaking into another person's home is not adhering to the highest standard of ethical conduct. We know it's not a norm of Senate behavior to attempt to take belongings in secret from another person's home. We know the actions of Senator Mitchell betray the public trust and bring the Minnesota Senate into dishonor and disrepute. The time is now for the Subcommittee on Ethical Conduct to act. With that, I'll turn it back over to Leader Johnson.
Well, thank you, Senator Lucero and Drazkowski. With that, we're open for questions.
Do you have any way to compel the Ethics Committee to reconvene?
Yeah, the Ethics Committee, with the new complaint on there, especially with the conflict of interest, is required to meet within 30 days of that being filed with that subcommittee.
Do you expect any different result, given its a 2-2 tie and you know how both sides are gonna vote.
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, we've got a growing body of evidence. We have 2 felony charges here. The new felony charge, we also have 2 ethics complaints. So what's building here behind, I mean, we've got to make sure that we're holding the integrity of the Minnesota Senate up. And clearly this body of evidence and the evidence against her is really building. So I'm hoping that will move the committee into the right direction.
And just one final thing, just to be clear, is the new ethics charge both on, because of the new felony charge and because of her vote that she cast?
No, so the new ethics charge, we want to keep those 2 separate. That's a great question. So that's simply on the conflict of interest. The vote that she took on the floor regarding her long-term ability to serve in the Minnesota Senate.
That's a conflict of, that's not part of the new ethics complaint.
That is the new ethics
That is,
complaint.
okay.
So we have an amended ethics complaint regarding her actions from last year that's stemming from the April arrest. But then we also have this, that she was voting to maintain her job at the Minnesota Senate.
Specifically in the procedural vote.
On the procedural
The
vote.
procedural
but-
vote to block the full
Precisely.
expulsion question.
Absolutely.
To Tom's first question, they have 30 days to take up this new complaint. Is there a way to compel them on the current complaint that is before them?
When we refile that, I mean, that'll be part of the package. So if they open up the hearing, I assume that they're gonna be hearing both of those issues coming up.
You talked about Senator Mitchell taking advantage of the law to delay her trial. You know, I'm not a lawyer, but it seemed pretty clear that that was something that she could use, and the judge agreed. I'm wondering if you think the law should change.
Certainly, we should be looking into that. I mean, this is a felony level crime. I don't think the law is anticipating felony level crimes being committed and then you being able to serve or using that law to continue your service until the end of a session. And she's using that, you know, before the ethics committee couldn't make a determination, they said, because the trial hadn't proceeded. But now the trial can't proceed because she's using her Senate position to avoid trial. And so this circular motion here is really preventing justice and from the victim and from the Senate itself. So this is getting to be a bigger and bigger issue.
So you would be open or would want to maybe change the law related to a circumstance like this, not the other issues like, you know, if you have to serve on jury duty, you're excused if you're a lawmaker in session, that kind of
I
stuff.
think there's some real movement for change within that law itself.
Senator, it seems the new complaint does not allow for the due process argument that Senator Murphy and others have made, that the ethics shouldn't act until the court process has completed itself. Since there's no court process related to the new charge, everything they should need to know has already happened. Am I sort of getting that right? That they wouldn't have a reason to delay action on the new complaint?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I'll turn it over to Senator Drazkowski because he'll clarify exactly on that second complaint that's separate from the initial issue. So Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. So, yeah, the new complaint simply focuses on the fact that she has, in our Senate rules, Rule 56, 10A.07 in Minnesota statutes, and Mason's number 522. So if you look at those 3 references, and that's what the Ethics Committee will be looking at, she took a vote where she had a personal and financial interest in the outcome of the vote. It's very clear in Senate rules, in 10A.07, and reflected as well in that Mason's citation I shared with you.
Why didn't you guys file something like this last year? Couldn't you have made the same argument when you tried the other procedural motions to remove for last year?
That's a good question, and in hindsight, we probably could have. All of the steps along the way have given Senator Mitchell the opportunity to do the right thing. And not only around this particular vote that we talk about in this new complaint and that I outlined in my opening remarks, not only there was she given the opportunity each and every time to do the right thing, and it was deliberate defiance of our rules by this member. Not only that, we did not act on that complaint, and again, gave her the opportunity to do the right thing. We got to this year, ladies and gentlemen, and she did it again. And she did it very clearly and defiantly and deliberately.
To sort of recap on the procedural elements of this we saw last year, if this ethics complaint goes forward, if she's barred from voting on things that she has potentially a conflict of interest in, what kinds of motions can your caucus bring forward to, curb this situation, if you will?
I'll defer to the leader on that one.
With a tie,
Sure, and so we'll continue to try to hold Senator Mitchell accountable until this is resolved. This has really been a cloud over the Senate's head. It's an inability to get our business done without the question of legitimacy moving forward. We've given a golden opportunity here at the end of last session. Even Ken Martin and Governor Walz had said that she should be stepping down. And that would clear that cloud off from the Minnesota Senate. This is again an opportunity to do that this year so that by the end of session, that seat can be maybe vacated. And if she wants to run for it again, look, there's an opportunity to do that. But the reality is right now we have business to do and this is such a distraction. We need to move forward.
Is there a motion or resolution that you guys could put forward that would achieve that result without, 34?
Without the majority on that one. I mean, we've got a series of motions that we can bring to hold the Senate accountable. But the reality is that the Senate Democrats have been covering for Senator Mitchell in this and really avoiding justice to be served. So we've got a series of motions, but we need the votes to do them. People to do the right things.
By just not voting on that day, she still wouldn't have been expelled, right? Because it would have been a tie vote.
Well, we don't know. We never got to the expulsion vote itself. And allowed that opportunity to happen within the Senate. That's why we're there to take that vote. Senator Wiskowski?
So Tom, it was a 33-33 tie with her vote. Without her vote, it would have been, yes, it would have been a 32-33 vote, and we would have had the vote on whether or not to expel her if she would not have taken that vote and if she would have followed Senate rules.
Motions simply require a simple majority.
Right.
Motions don't need 34
So
votes.
that vote was the expulsion vote would have been a majority of those voting, correct? You didn't need
Go ahead.
34 for that.
Yeah,
Correct.
the motion
It
just
was-
needs a simple majority. The expulsion needs 45.
Oh, that's
But the
right.
motion, because it failed,
The
we couldn't
motion
move.
is a majority of the people present. Yeah, the members present, correct. And so, right, but we weren't able to even get to that vote because Senator Mitchell deliberately blocked the effort to get to that vote. That was a conflict of interest.
I know this is kind of a unique situation where her financial interest or the conflict of interest is with her job in the legislature, but zooming out, do you think more broadly there's an issue with conflict of interest at the legislature with lawmakers voting certainly on bills that impact their employers directly, including those who are, like, is she the only, is this a broader issue that needs to be looked at?
No, it is, and it's been exercised in the past. Senator Miller has multiple times stood up and said and asked to be, recused from voting. And because it had to do with his business. Most recently was, I think it was the copper theft bill or something. Senator Goggin used to do it regularly around his employment with Xcel Energy when there was an energy bill that came before the body, and others have as well. Members read these rules, members follow these rules. This one doesn't.
Just to follow up Tori's question, I mean, do you think that that is a symptom of having a legislature that's so closely divided, or is that something you don't see typically when, it's just a one vote majority?
I don't have the answer to that.
Senator Goggin did it when we had a one-vote majority.
Senator Goggin did it probably, I'm guessing, a half a dozen times. Him and I were in contact regularly when I was in the House, and he talked about that. So I've seen it happen in the House, when I was in the House, both in the majority and in the minority. So for some reason, this particular senator, whether it's the situation that that exists in the Senate or her personal desire or approach to decision-making or whatever, has decided to be defiant of the law, so, or of the rules and the law.
Do you think this, you know, cause this issue has lasted now 2 sessions before you get to a trial, that it, you know, casts a cloud or dampens relationships with Democrats?
Well, it certainly does. I mean, the reality is that this cloud is just hanging over the Senate right now. And so when you're constantly having party line votes, 34, 33, over and over again, and you have somebody that's been accused of 2 felony level crimes, she's the one that's casting the deciding vote on a lot of these cases. That really brings into question what we're doing in the Minnesota Senate. And so it doesn't have, you know, it's hard for Minnesotans to really have full faith in the Minnesota Senate and what we're doing when that is the final vote on it. So we're really struggling here to find, we've got a number of situations where we've tried to give Democrats an opportunity to do the right thing, and they just continue to cover for her over and over again.
Have you talked to any of the Senate Democrats who have called on her to resign and had interactions with them and leaned on them one way or the other?
We've had those conversations, and we hope that eventually they'll come with us, but so far we've seen from folks like in the Blue Dog Caucus over and over again, that seems to be more of a talking point than an action item for them.
But you can say.
You know, I would just add, the dark cloud over the relationships between Democrats and Republicans in the Senate isn't just here. It's across the entire state. Confidence in the Minnesota Senate has been eroded by Minnesotans because of this dark cloud. And so we need to uphold the highest standards of ethical conduct to restore that confidence that Minnesotans expect and deserve in the legislation that is passed. And when it's passed by 1 vote, everybody knows in the back of their mind that it is done so with the shadow of that dark cloud.
Senator, can I circle back though? I mean, I'm not saying, I know this is not the circumstances in this case, but would you not have a circumstance where a district attorney in some county decides that they can charge a senator with a felony, knowing that they could get that senator removed and affect your Senate? I mean, there is an integrity and an independence of the Senate as well at stake. That would require a judge to look at these charges by a prosecutor and a court to decide whether they're valid or not. I would assume you wouldn't want to be in a circumstance where a rogue district attorney could come in and affect the Minnesota State Senate.
I want to be very clear, something that's been reiterated since last year, that the criminal trial is not contingent on what happens here in the Senate or vice versa. Upholding Senate ethical standards is its own process. We have admissions from Senator Mitchell herself entering the premises. We have her attorney making similar comments, admitting this. This alone violates Senate ethical standards and puts this body into dishonor and disrepute. And it's separate from whatever a hypothetical prosecutor may or may not do in the future.
We also said you would look at changing that protection for sitting senators, that they could not be removed because they were charged and are facing trial. I mean, it's possible it could happen to you, right?
I don't think the changing of the law was in that nature. I think it was to examine a sitting senator using this law to shelter themselves from criminal charges in a criminal court. Scenarios such as jury duty or other scenarios in the legal process, maybe one is an attorney and they have a court date that they have to appear in court because they're representing a client. Those are different scenarios. But in this scenario, we have a senator that is using and abusing her position as a senator and delaying her own criminal proceedings from felony charges, and it is also delaying the justice of Carol Mitchell.
Have any of you spoken to Senator Mitchell or tried to speak to her about the ethics complaint, either this one or the previous one?
I've had no conversations with Senator Mitchell as one who is a co-author on the original and as one who is a co-author on the new ethics complaint. I've not personally had conversations with Senator Mitchell.
I have not either.
Have any of you tried to talk to her?
No, and I think, that's gonna work through our Senate process. We have the ethics subcommittee, and so they're working through the evidence and the process on that.
Circle back to the beginning, so you filed a new ethics complaint and amended the initial one with the second felony charge.
Yeah.
So the amended felony charge would not trigger a new hearing, only the new one does?
Well, so we're filing that one again too, and so once it's filed, it should trigger that 30 days. But then we're also filing both of them at the same time, so the conflict of interest and the original one, but it's amended, so we're gonna file that again too. So either one should be able to trigger that 30 days.
We'll get copies of these soon? Well,
They're in your inbox
oh, they are, you
at
said
the end of the email, yep.
So in other words, you would want the hearing to have to relitigate the other one that has been basically put on, delay until the trial.
And if you remember during those ethics hearings, part of the reason was, they said they would come back to it if there was new evidence that was offered, if there was a development within the case. So we've seen a second charge, we've seen comments made by the prosecutor or put into that initial charge or that second charge. So there's been significant amount of development within that. So yes, we would anticipate some movement on that one as well.
Yeah, if I can just offer, it's actually it's a newly filed complaint that Senator Lucero is bringing as well. So just kind of the physical reality of it exists as well. It's its own new complaint.
The amended one is its
Yes.
own new.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.